Hey everyone, this is Car Ray Rob, where I'm Ray,
And I'm Rob.
and we want to welcome you guys to our new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
That's right, everyone. We are back for a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. But before we get started, Ray, why don't you tell everybody what it is we do here?
Sure will, Rob. What we do with Say Hello is I'm going to introduce a movie to you that you've never seen before, but it's a movie that I love and I want you to see it, and I want you to love it as much as I do.
Absolutely. We call that our fresh perspective on a retrospective review. And as Ray said, it is his week. So I am very curious to see what he has going on here.
I have a fun one. I've been
Ooh.
letting this movie simmer, like marinate a little bit.
Okay.
It was released in 2022. It's really a 2020 movie,
Uh-huh.
but something happened in 2020 why this movie couldn't come out. I don't remember
Sure.
what happened back then, but big world
Nobody
thing.
does.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
But
We've all memory hold that.
but I've been waiting to show you this movie. I wanted it to age a little bit. Because I think this movie is a whole lot of fun, and that's what we
Wow.
need right now. We need to have a blast.
That's true.
And this movie is gonna you're either gonna like just love this movie. It's as fun as can be. You'll be, you're just gonna be in it from start to end, or maybe you won't like it at all. But like I feel like it'd be hard not to just be like, yeah, this is fun. This is really fun, and that's what I'm trying to bring to this episode. Fun.
Well, that's good because as we know, I've been trying to kind of push you a little
Yeah.
bit, so
Yeah.
you have to counterbalance me
Exactly.
and bring something fun.
The start of the month, we're challenging people. The middle of the month, I'm showing you animated movies.
Oh,
and
is this
I did that.
animated?
No, last month I did that
okay.
last
I'm like, you're gonna
month.
do it again?
And this month, like I said, I'm bringing it up. A movie with big set pieces, big action scenes, that are just a treasure to watch.
Okay, well, I am extremely excited. I love to have fun, but before we can have fun, Ray, I gotta know, what do you got?
What do you got? What do you got?
Well, Rob, last week, right before we ended our episode, you wanted me to tease what movie I was going to tell you, or what movie I was going to show you today, and I didn't really do it.
No.
But I did kind of say I was thinking of a pirate joke. So the
Arr.
reason you
What?
just named the movie. Because the movie I'm presenting to you is RRR.
What? R?
Yeah, RRR. Yeah. Yeah. I think I was going to say something like, what would be a pirate's favorite movie in 2022?
Oh my god!
And then you would say R, and then I would say yes, RRR. But
that's funny.
yeah.
I've heard of RRR.
Yeah, it's the Indian movie.
Yes.
You can find it on Netflix very easily. It's
Okay.
been there for years now. But it's like, to me, it's like Bollywood at its absolute finest, most extreme. Like I mentioned in this that this movie was obviously a lot of fun. But the set pieces of this movie are huge, and I think it's an interesting thing to watch because we are given movies left and right, Marvel movies, DC movies, all of these, Avatar movies, where it's like big set pieces are a thing, like
Big spectacles.
Yeah, there's always big spectacles. This movie though does that, but in a way that I just almost find is more effective in some ways.
Interesting.
Where I feel like you just like they're used to kind of get you hooked into the characters, very much like a Sergio Leone movie would do, like we mentioned earlier, like
sure.
where he's very famous. He gives each one of those characters their individual scene, and this movie RR is going to kind of start out the same way, where each of the two main leads are going to get their intro set piece scene, and you're going to be like, wow, this was cool.
Okay.
Most likely, and then the spectacle from there. You know what I mean? Now RRR is a long movie.
How long are we
it's
talking?
it's gonna push 3 hours. It's not
I
gonna.
mean,
We're not gonna
Sergio Leone.
yeah.
So I think we're fine.
we're
So
not
give
gonna.
that the
Yeah,
idea.
we're not gonna exceed that. But it's but there's gonna be some. We could talk about potentially being bloated. But I think again that we always talk about cultural, like what's part of your culture. So
Sure.
there's gonna be dancing. There's gonna be singing.
Well,
there's gonna be
Bollywood,
there's gonna
right?
be there's gonna be music videos in the middle of the movie.
Okay.
But again, to me, like that's this spectacle
Okay.
of this movie. And I to me, it all fits. It's really fun.
Well, okay. So, like I said, I know.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've heard of this movie. I know it existed, but I know nothing about what it's about.
Yeah.
So tell me what it's about real quick.
So we have the two main leads. So I kind of mentioned their names are like Komaram and Alluri, and in a way they're just two regular dudes. Like one guy is like he's a defender of a village. I guess would be the easiest way to name him. And then Alluri's character is kind of like he is trying to work up through the British Army or the British police. So kind of one's on the side for good, and one's kind of in the ranks of the bad, the British. This is like pre-independent India,
Right, okay,
so he's working for like the
yeah.
British Army and stuff. So he's on the side of the bad, but they kind of like their paths get woven. You learn more about their backstories, but in a way, like these guys are they're normal people, but the movie kind of portrays them almost superhero-esque. Like they don't have superpowers, but they're fighting, and their strength is just so extravagant that it's obviously very, very fictional. I mean, you're going to see in the opening scene when you meet Alluri, you're like, okay, this is crazy.
Okay.
This is absolutely nuts, and I'm on board.
Right.
Again, that's how I always watch it. But yeah, so it's great. So it's like it's not a superhero movie, but
Right.
in a way, it kind of feels like it.
Okay.
And it's got to be something where, like, I think the plot's fine and it's fun and it's good, and I think they dive into the characters well enough where like they're always building on them throughout the whole 3 hours, which I kind of find fun, and that character development keeps happening. But some people say like maybe some of the fight scenes are non-logical. Like, yeah, sure, that's totally what this is about. Like
that shield doesn't obey the laws of physics at all.
No, there's no law of physics going to be going on here. I guarantee you that. So, like I said, this is a movie. It's spectacle, but I think it's going to be fun to talk about the effectiveness of it, and if you find it effective or not. I guess like I said, I do.
Okay.
And this is one thing. So I'm like, get me to the next one. Get me to the next set piece. I want to see what you guys do next. Like, if this is what you did to start the movie, I want to see what it builds to.
Well, you have built this up quite
I know.
a bit.
I usually don't like to do that, but
you have built this up.
This
quite
movie
a
gets
bit.
me going.
Okay, well that makes me excited. That gets me excited. That means that it's time to go watch this movie and see if it lives up. So if you have not seen RRR, by all
pirate
means,
impression.
Exactly. By all means, pause the podcast. Go check this movie out. I am going to do that because I am so excited to do that right now, and come back and find out if I love this movie as much as Ray does.
Ray and Rob are currently watching the film. You may be also watching the film. If you're not, then you're listening to me say that Ray and Rob are watching the film. They'll be right back when they're done watching the film.
All right, guys, we are back from watching
Woo.
RRR. Rob, should we do a musical number?
I mean, I feel like we
Dance
have
routine?
to. It's the thing. It is the thing to do.
And there's quite a few big ones in this movie. I'm sure we'll discuss
There's a lot of big things in this movie.
Exactly.
I mean, this movie encapsulated the word spectacle. I see why you kind of threw in the Marvel superhero thing.
Yeah, I told you, like, this movie just gets me going. I just have so much fun with the action. I don't know if it's so overblown, but in a tonal way where it still feels like it works. It's almost cartoonish, and I think that all this is going to kind of go in what we're going to talk about with RRR, which is Rise, Roar, and Revolt.
Yes,
for people who
I
didn't
know that. Yeah, I didn't know that on the title screen.
Don't type that into the Netflix search engine; it won't come up. But yeah, I think we're kind of hitting the nail on the head of what I think like this question is that I want us to hunt down throughout this conversation. It's because I said in the before section, you're hinting at now, this movie feels a lot like it could be a Marvel movie. Like it's checking a lot of those boxes. These guys don't necessarily have superpowers, but they kind of do. But they're not like acknowledged as superpowers. It's just like feats of strength.
Yeah.
But we live in a culture right now where like, are we going through superhero fatigue? Are the superhero movies just not as good as what we were used to? Or like, what are these questions? And I kind of feel the same thing here where I don't personally feel fatigued when I watch this movie. And it's a lot of movie. It's over 3 hours of movie.
It is a lot of
But
movie.
I don't get fatigued here. I don't feel it. It gets me going. So I think I want to ask, the question that we'll get to at the end is, something along these lines of where, do you think this movie overcomes that connotation of like superhero fatigue?
Mhm.
And then if so, like why? What was it able to do that made it successful? Is there a recipe in here that other movies could try to follow? Do you think that could be a question we could try to hunt
I
down?
definitely think so. I mean, there's a lot of interesting, unique things about this movie that, like you said, that kind of break it out of the mold, I think, of what we see of as this big kind of blockbuster spectacle, Marvel
Yeah.
type movie. So yeah, I think we're going to touch on a lot of them in this conversation.
Well, let's start with my favorite one because it is at the beginning of the movie. But when we first see Rom as like this office, English police officer,
Right.
at this revolt that looks like there's like 1 million people protesting this little this little shack of a police station,
Right.
and then foolishly the captain there orders their little unit to capture this one dude, and
Right.
Rom is the only one that accepts the challenge, and basically turns into this one verse like
The fire.
Yeah. That's when Rom's the fire. And I love his music when he goes fire mode. But like when it's basically this, it literally looks like we're watching a 1 versus 1,000 battle,
Yeah.
and you're like, no way this could actually happen or be realistic. But in a way, it kind of feels legitimate too. Like to me, they were such a good line of balancing that tightrope of like not going over the edge and becoming too silly.
Sure.
Understanding where they are, it's a little silly, but it's like there's some realism in there too. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and I see a lot of influences in this movie,
Sure.
especially when you're talking about the action sequences. So obviously we already talked about Marvel and the superhero movies, and I think that is definitely part of it. You're gonna maybe laugh. I saw a little 300
Sure.
in this too.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
especially with some of the ways that the action sequences were done in a
Little
more
Zack
tasteful
Snyder.
way. Probably,
Yeah.
something's probably going to age better than 300 did, in all honesty. But yeah, and some of that I think could be kind of that Bollywood cultural kind of influence as well, and how
Yeah.
they handle these action sequences. But it's I don't disagree that they are overblown, but not in. I shouldn't say overblown. I should say that they are fantastical.
Right.
That's the word I'm going to
Right.
use. I'm not going to use overblown because that sounds bad. I'm going to say fantastical. But I think that the movie overall fits that,
Yeah.
so it doesn't feel out of place.
Yeah, you know what I think? I think again, I don't want to compare to Marvel movies because I do love Marvel movies. I think the MCU is super fun and stuff, and I don't know if I necessarily feel like there's superhero fatigue, though I like things of differing degrees. But again, that is like the benchmark that you'd want to compare to. I think
Sure.
they're the ones that put themselves out there as being like the big universe out there. So they do put that target on themselves in a way I'm sure that they're okay with. But like. Even though as I mentioned, this opening scene with Ram, it's this battle of 1 versus like 1,000, but it still always manages to feel super personal to me. Like
Sure.
you really maybe only see 10 guys on a screen at a time because it's super zoomed in on Ram. Again, maybe that's
Right.
part of what makes it feel more realistic and more plausible as you're like
Mhm.
watching this happen. But like, I can, and again, I don't want to be just sound pessimistic, but I can see the same thing like in a Marvel movie where like one big ground punch by the Hulk and like 300 people around him are knocked away. And then there's
Right.
the end of that fight. And it's like,
Right.
that's not the fight because it doesn't feel personal. It's not in your face.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and they also find some really interesting things to do within the fight sequence to keep it interesting. Because if you're just going to watch him, run
Punch,
into this,
yeah.
right, run into this, even a crowd of 1,000 people, and just it's like punching and kicking and punching and kicking, it's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But they find these little moments that I think are help keep the sequence moving forward. And one that in that sequence specifically that I really thought was cool was when he is under like the pile of
Yeah.
people, and they've almost like make a dome.
Yes, that's
over
what
him.
that's what I think about when I think about that personal. It's so personal in that moment.
Exactly, and I think that they are able to find those moments consistently, like throughout the movie, throughout the different action sequences, not just this one, but all of them, that I think make it intriguing to the viewer,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't just get bored with it.
Yeah.
Because even spectacle can get boring.
Sure, that's
just
the
for
thing.
spectacle's sake.
That's
right.
that's superhero fatigue, right?
It is, and 100%.
Yeah.
is.
That it could get boring.
Yeah, but it's hard to say that they don't take really just their cues, at least in some regards, from those types of action
Sure.
sequences in Marvel. I think about the last one in the forest sequence where when we get to, jumping ahead a little bit, but
Sure.
when Bheem comes into the story or whatever, and lifts the motorcycle,
Yeah.
about like grabs it by the wheel and then like lifts it above his head. Like, I mean, I almost feel like that could have come right out of First Avenger.
It might
like
have,
Captain
yeah.
America, First Avenger.
Right.
So there's definitely moments like that throughout the movie where you can tell that they're kind of paying. Maybe we'll even call it homage.
Sure.
To those types of movies, but they're still able to kind of find these moments that I feel very unique to this.
Yeah. I think my big thing, and we can kind of, keep talking about it, but I feel like their set pieces, they're large, they're extravagant, they're long.
Yeah.
Like you said, they find ways to keep them interesting, but I feel like they're doing a better job of serving a purpose. And the purpose isn't just to keep the plot moving forward or, hey, we're at the halfway part of the movie. Like, we've had a couple exposition scenes. We need a fight scene now.
Right.
Like, it's a real purpose of learning about that character. Like, at the end of Ram's scene, when he does defeat the 1,000 people, and basically all 1,000 protesters kind of like, yeah, we're good. We're gonna back off. You're like,
yeah.
You leave that scene thinking Ram is undefeatable, like that he is scary, and then he's super loyal to the crown, like that.
Right.
That he is like any opposition is gonna have to go through him, and that's not gonna be an easy task. Like basically, almost kind of setting up a great villain. Other than I thought it was too cool, and I root for him because it was such a cool thing.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right with that. I think that there's a lot of effective storytelling within the fighting sequences, and even I know we'll end up touching on this because it's hard not to in a much long form version. But the music, you mentioned the music, with that, but even the lyrics of the music in certain songs in certain sequences are adding to that storytelling, and they're kind of asking certain questions of the viewer and things like that. Like, is this going to end in bloodshed? Or, especially when Bheem and Ram become friends and all of that. Like, I think there's a lot of effective stuff like that in this movie that kind of keeps you as a viewer engaged in the story. And you're right, it's as far as like writing economy, film economy goes, you're making the most out of every moment of the movie.
Yeah, and this movie does take its time in parts for sure. But we talked about the fire, and then Bheem, the other main character, is the water. And I think the water's a great little name because he can be calm, but he can also drown you.
Right.
In his opening scene, it's like, all right, well, how is he different? And they do a good job, I think, of making him different, but still showing that strength. Where he's basically, you kind of learn later in the movie they hunt down these wild animals to serve at their whim when needed,
right?
Or at least that's what they were doing during this process. And he basically is in a battle with a tiger, a gigantic tiger, and he's a battle of strength and not to kill but to capture. And when he does capture, he apologizes that he has to do it. Like again, a really cool individual scene. He's running, he's being chased by a wolf and then a tiger, and then he's got to pull, use his strength to pull the netting around this tiger to capture it. Like, there's all these things, but it is so much more personal because it's just him and the tiger.
Yeah.
The tiger can swipe his claws if he's not, if he messes up and rip his face off at any second. Like, it's just very personal. I just really enjoy that aspect.
I agree. And I think it goes to the Bheem character because of his connection to nature.
Sure.
And I think that's also something that's very interesting about this movie is the embrace of nature. And that, part of it, I think, has to do with the character, coming from the forest, being a man of the forest. And he talks about that, at different points in the movie. But, I think of the action sequence later in the movie when, he's going to rescue Malli. And you said, you hinted to it, he brings these animals like on the truck, and that sequence is super interesting and not something like, I don't feel like I've seen this before. You know what I mean? And something like that. And I think kind of, again, finding those unique moments in this movie and tying it to the character itself. So you're kind of, filling out that character, understanding who they are, and making it more than just either like a bland archetype or just a bland slate, you know what I mean, like a blank slate.
Because even in that scene, we know when it starts off as the trying to rescue Malli, and it ends up really being where Ram and Bheem have to end up fighting each other because they finally they end up meeting randomly, which I think is really cool when they rescue the kid off the boat.
Big actions, another big set piece.
Again, like they're using this rope and jumping off opposite sides of the bridge to kind of use each other as like momentum to. So I thought that was really cool. Quick. It was a quick scene, but a really cool way that just to kind of do a rescue scene. This was cool, and then it was just a good way that they develop a friendship from there. Of course, they don't know that Ram is secretly hunting Bheem. He doesn't know that. He
Right.
doesn't know who he's hunting. And then, Bheem doesn't realize he's being hunted by this guy, or that his friend is a English police officer.
Right.
And then that scene where we're talking about where they actually rescue Malli, it's minutes after Ram and Bheem kind of talk and tell each other who they are.
Right.
Because Beam's or Ram's on death's door after getting bit by a snake. It all sounds very extravagant when you try to talk to it really quick.
It is true.
But but again, it's a great action scene because it's pushing their friendship, and you keep hoping that, like, no, Ram, like, get on Beam's side, like, why are you this puppet for the for this English empire and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, Beam's a better friend to you than this loyalty to the crown. And so it challenges you as the viewer. You're not just watching a cool scene, be like, wow, that's cool, or that's cool. And you are doing that. You are saying that in those parts. Like when Ram like picks up the torch and then punches the tiger in the face and looks like he's got like a mechanical firearm. Like, that is badass.
Yeah.
But there's more going on in the scenes than that.
Absolutely. And even, like the final scene where, kind of get Ram in its full form when he's finally like the fire. He's got the long hair, the beard, which he rocks.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, man, that is a sexy man. I'm just gonna say that. He rocks that hard. But and that whole kind of fight sequence. But there's a lot of great moments in there. And again, it's just like small stuff. I think so it's like Bheem's drinking the water, and then Ram comes in with the arrows to kind of save him. And then, I think of the moment where he like shoots an arrow at the tree.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes right through, but it like stops just short of the guy's eye.
Yeah.
But then he like runs up and he like kicks the arrow
through the rest of the way.
Through the rest of the way. Like, they find those little moments that I think, again, keep those action sequences so interesting. I'm going to make this comparison, and I know you're going to click with it right away, like John Wick.
Right.
Like John Wick does that really well. And maybe even better than like a Marvel movie or something like that, where they find those little intricate moments that make those fight sequences so kinetic and interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that, they kind of really keep that up throughout. And for being such a long movie and with as many action set pieces as there are, it could be really easy to
get redundant.
Right, exactly. And I don't necessarily feel like they do that with this movie.
I mean, there's one action scene where literally Ram is, when they, I guess it's the beginning of this action scene, because this final battle takes place like multiple segments. They're like in the prison during the escape scene where Ram is literally on Bheem's shoulders the entire time, like,
right.
And which is such a interesting way to do a fight scene. But then they're using each other's bodies for propulsion and swinging off things. Like, it's super just. Like, I don't know if you're the director, like, hey, I want to do a whole fight scene where this dude's just sitting on his shoulders the whole time. Like, you want them to fight 100 guards while they're sitting on top of each other's shoulders?
Right.
Like, yeah. How am I going to do that? That's what I'm paying you to do.
Right. But it's also kind of interesting, too, because it kind of goes to their friendship as well.
Exactly.
And the team
becoming one.
Right. Yeah. And this is kind of like very, cultural for, like Indian culture. Like, a lot of their gods and goddesses have multiple arms.
Yeah.
So like having them sit on each other's shoulders is almost like making them into like a god form, which I thought was really interesting. So, okay, it'd be easy to sit here for an hour and just talk about the action sequences, but
because they're cool.
Because they're cool. But one thing I would like to circle back on is kind of what we've been hinting at through this entire thing already about the fight sequences is the story that lies underneath.
Sure. And
how the fight sequences obviously bolster that. But let's talk about Bheem and Ram as characters, their stories together, because we kind of jumped in at Ram's intro scene, but there's a scene before that, which is when Malli is kidnapped, which is an extremely powerful scene because it's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, having her kidnapped by Ray Stevenson and his wife, and like that whole thing and I thought her mom was dead.
I did too.
So I was like, oh man. So
she took like a log right to the side of the face.
Right. But there's also,
But there's also that line that Ray Stevenson says throughout the movie.
About the bullet?
That? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to mention that. Yeah. And I think that really kind of goes to set up the social revolution that's coming, and the way that the British see the Indian people, and
not worth a bullet, essentially.
Right. Exactly. Not worth a bullet.
Not worth a shilling or whatever it was.
Right. But I beyond that, so it's great. You set him up as the villain, but obviously, with Malli being kidnapped and everything, you are automatically on Bheem's side. You know,
Right.
when he is dispatched, when they build him up as like this, the shepherd coming in to find any sheep in his flock and all of that
At any cost.
at any cost. So you're on Beheem's side. So they have a lot of work to do as a writer to have you buy into Rom,
Right.
especially when they come together. So that's it's a heavy lift. It
Very.
is, because when you have such a strong, powerful scene opening the movie, you're putting the viewer firmly on the side of right, which is Malli needs to come home.
Yeah.
And Bheem is the tool to make that happen. So you're backing Bheem. But then, you have this friendship that is, blooming, blossoming. So you're buying into the Rom character, but then eventually you find out what Rom's, ultimate goals are as well, and there's more to him, and
Yeah.
it's a really great reveal of information.
Yeah, I think that's what they handle. Because I do think like when the movie gets like when RRR as the movie gets like crapped on, it would be like great action scenes. The plot sucks or the plot's basic. I'm like, I
Right.
don't know. I feel like Rom's story is really interesting. Like,
Right.
I think they do a good job of like I said, you're questioning like why are you so loyal to the crown, and then you realize at the end he's not. Like, maybe his plan is a little extra.
Right, sure.
But like he's trying to become a special army within the English army or police force or
Right.
whatever it is, so that he can gain access to these weapons. Then he can bring these weapons home because as we learn through his backstory, because they're such talented fighters and his dad was a talented shooter, marksman. Their plan is like if we need to arm ourselves, then we'll be able to drive the English out. Like
Right.
he's trying to start a revolution,
Yeah.
and he just they need the weapons
Yeah.
to start it. And so he is dead set and will do whatever it takes to get a hold of those weapons so that he can start this revolution.
Yeah.
Takes you the whole movie to realize that, but when you finally do, you're like, oh, great, thank you, because like I like Ram as a character. He's super fun and super cool to watch. I'm glad I can finally be on his side.
Yeah, and it's funny because you do kind of have those movies where this isn't the first time they've ever done that.
Oh,
You know
no.
what I mean? Where
Yeah.
we another movie that we've talked about is JSA. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Now, but in the end, Rom and Bheem are on the same side, where in JSA they weren't necessarily. It's more
Yeah,
like
well,
their friendship blossomed, even being on opposite sides of something.
They didn't know they were on opposite sides, and they were not really on opposite
Right,
sides.
exactly.
but
That's
they-
my point.
yeah.
But with a friendship like this, you have to buy into it. And you have to buy into it hard. And I think that they do a really great job. So you mentioned the scene where the first action set piece with them together, where they rescue the small boy.
Yeah.
So there's so many layers to that scene. So having Rom even want to save the boy, knowing who Rom is at that point, kind of makes you as a viewer start to be sympathetic to him.
Right.
Because of that, just again, save the kid, save the cat,
Save the cat.
save the cat. But I think another really great element of that too is, and it's subtle, but it's so effective, is how both Rom and Bheem are on the bridge and they're communicating without words.
Mm-hmm.
He's just doing hand signals and he's just like doing
Yeah.
all these crazy things, and Bheem knows exactly what he's saying.
Right. He's tracking it.
So it shows that they have this connection
yeah.
already, that they are, that they can understand each other, and whether it be through their their upbringings,
Yeah.
or whatever it is,
They're mo-
there's something
Yeah.
about
Their
them.
minds are more aligned than
Right.
we're initially led to believe.
Right, exactly, and then to see the action sequence unfold in such a a flawless way.
Yeah.
It kind of puts you in a mindset of like, oh, these guys are meant to be a team.
Right. Right.
And obviously then you root for them,
Yeah.
as their friendship grows, and then they kind of do a great montage sequence of them just kind of hanging out and being bros and doing whatever, and I'm talking about the music, like there's that's one of the where the lyrics are very much doing the storytelling, because
Yeah.
like I said, I think I've mentioned earlier, it's like a line like, is this going to end in bloodshed? Like, are they meant this friendship
Right.
going to end
Because
in bloodshed?
we as a viewer already know at that point that they're on opposite sides.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So you as a viewer are expecting this
To go bad.
right, this confrontation at some point. But for me, I think it really solidifies when Jenny comes into the picture and Rom is like dead set on helping Bheem like woo this girl,
Yeah.
and then they go to the party, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, is the dance off at the party.
Yeah.
Like, it is so crazy.
Yeah, and I think this is I think this is where like okay, you're some people are gonna watch this movie and they're gonna be like, this is too Bollywood for me. I guess I think
Sure.
you know what I mean. Like, but I mean, again, I think both of these like really extravagant dance scenes that they do, the one that this and the one at the very end, like they're almost like action scenes in themselves. So the dancing is
Absolutely.
so extravagant. It's so
100%.
extravagant. But
Yeah.
you know, again, I think they're so, and it seems like you said, it seems like it's Bollywood. You can be like, oh, this is just cultural, but I'm like, it's smarter than that though too.
No, it is.
Because you know, I think like you know when the scene starts off, it's like this white guy
Yeah.
is challenging Beam about like you know
Can you do the
you can't
Charleston
dance,
or you can't
but
do this
and it's
or whatever?
yeah, but it's so funny because he picks like a Spanish
right.
race dance that he does.
Mhm.
Then he picks I think he does swing next, which is you know obviously not a white guy dance.
Right.
And I think even the African American drummer just kind of rolls his eyes.
Right. Yeah.
And then he picks like a tango again.
Yeah.
Nothing that like nothing. Three
Right.
cultural
appropriated
yeah,
song, like,
right. Three
styles of
cultural
music.
dance styles that he has nothing to do with. And then
Right.
it's like, what can you do? It's like, well, you just open the door for let's teach the audience now a little
Right.
bit about what Indian dance can be like. And
Yeah.
and again, this is a way I was also, you know, it's also a competition goal of winning over Jenny and all this
Yeah.
other stuff. But yeah, super cool. So I wasn't sure if you totally would dig those. So I'm glad you're
Oh yeah,
thinking
no,
you did.
no. I mean, and being a Bollywood movie, you kind of expect that
Sure.
a little bit to a certain degree, but yeah, and I think that was just the way they're filmed, like you said, are 100% action sequences, and but you're 100% right as well, where it is not just a spectacle dance piece. It
Right.
is like a show of, again, this building to revolution, this idea of, you know, racism on display in this, you know, and how the British viewed the Indian people,
Right.
and the response to that. But then you also have the extra layer of Ram and Bheem in, you know, being competitors, if you
Mhm.
will, in this, when it turns into a legitimate dance off, and then where Ram throws the dance competition because he notices that everybody's rooting for him except for Jenny,
Right.
who's rooting for Bheem, and
Yeah.
he's like, I gotta get my boy in there, and like
Yeah.
so he you know my leg, and he
Pulls a
falls
cramp,
over, he pulls
yeah.
a cramp, and then he just falls over, and like, and then Bheem wins, and you know, catches Jenny's eye, which
Yeah.
obviously she, you know, stays with him more or less through the rest of the
Yeah.
movie, you know, in certain capacities.
Yeah.
But again, it's effective storytelling in, you know, what is essentially a spectacle piece.
Exactly. Like I said, I feel like the movie does a good job of doing multiple things, and I think too, like we said, like you could just kind of say that it's a Bollywood movie or whatever, but it's like I think part of what they're doing well here too is like they understand what they are, like they're okay with going into this a little bit of absurdity, like tonally it's the movie works, like the movie understands what it is. It's not trying to be something else. It's not like this is a movie we're going to try to make this really cool action scene that will appeal to Western audiences or something like that. Not like, no, we're going to make our movie and it's just going to be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not afraid of the melodrama of Bollywood. I think that's the other part of it too, is like when we watch a Marvel movie, you know, again, we keep going back to Marvel, you know, there's not a lot of melodrama in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a paint by numbers, by the numbers. You know what I mean? Like, kind of action superhero experience at this point. I'm not saying that is like necessarily a negative connotation, but they have a style that they stick to. Is more my point.
Sure.
And you know, with this, I think with Bollywood, you know, kind of embracing that melodrama in the acting sequences, there are times when it feels like it could be like, oh my god, like this is going to come off cheesy or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think again, it kind of works stylistically. A lot of it because, you know, so you're obviously in a fantastical world, but it feels like a fairy tale.
Right.
You know, and so somebody else that I kind of tie this to in that regard is Guillermo del Toro. Because Guillermo del Toro does a really great job. He's one of my favorite modern day fairy tale storytellers.
Yeah, he might be in a class of his own.
He really is, and I think that, you know, obviously, I'm sure he, you know, is probably a fan of Bollywood to a certain degree, but I'm sure they're a fan of him as well.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see those influences where it's, you know, you're not afraid of the fantastical. You know, I feel like, you know, we live in a world now where everything feels like it has to feel gritty and real.
Exactly.
And I think that there is a place for a movie, with this kind of style in it, where this fantastical nature, you're embracing the like I said, for lack of a better term, story or fairy tale storytelling, and it kind of goes back to like the origins of storytelling, because all modern storytelling breeds from fairy tales of those types of things.
Yeah, all stores are kind of based off. What do they say? There's only like 5 real stories out there.
5 or 7,
yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
But kind of every time I watch this, I kind of think of speaking of Marvel, but like Shang-Chi a little bit, because like the ending of his Shang-Chi is my dad turns into a dragon. I've got to basically I have to fight this dragon.
Sure.
It's like there's some absurdity in there, but I think there's great moments between Shang-Chi and holding on to his sister and stuff. Like when you go extravagant, you do also open the door for like some really different emotional moments, because we never would have thought of them before, because you're putting them in such an interesting place.
No, I 100% agree with that, and I think that's kind of one of the places that Marvel kind of has this
Sometimes
balancing
steers away from,
right.
yeah.
It's like they're afraid to lean into the fantastical, where something like RRR is full bore. Like they're not afraid to be what they are. Like you said, that they understand who they are, what they want to be in the movie that they're trying to make, and they're unapologetic about it.
And I think I'm addicted to that. And I think we're speak to that point too. I think we're going to speaking of balance, pretty much the next scene in the movie is a pretty long flashback scene where we see Ram as a kid,
right,
and really get to introduce to Ram's dad, essentially, where he basically is an ex-soldier, and Ray Stevenson basically, Ray Stevenson being Ray Stevenson, his dad witnessed another one of those examples where he kind of gave his speech about don't waste the bullet on this Indian scum or whatever, and then they executed a guy, through beating with a stick, essentially, a log or whatever it was. And his dad becomes like a protector of this village. He's training them all to shoot. We learn how good of a shooter Ram is, and then the village is attacked.
Yeah,
and you see like his dad is, again, he's sniping people left and right, but still through that process, there's too many gunmen, and you see Ram's like brother, I guess, gets shot, and then his mom gets shot, and eventually, his dad like gets badly hurt, so Ram is like given the opportunity. Here's the gun, just get to work. And his dad has got this load,
right, aim,
shoot, which
load,
is super.
aim, shoot,
It's just so cool the way then they're going to use that throughout the movie multiple times. But and then eventually you see like then that cuts away, and we come back to it even later when Sita is talking to Bheem about why Ram is so devoted, and you see the scenes after that where the army's closing in again later, and his dad kind of like gives himself up. He's in the middle, but he rips off his shirt. He's covered in like dynamite, and you hear him say load, aim, shoot, and Ram has to like shoot his own dad essentially, or blow his dad up to kind of fend off this army. So they do a good job of like, all right, here's how we're going to turn Ram around, right? Like, again, that's extravagant. Those scenes are like actiony scenes, but like I think you're falling in love with his dad. Like you're really like, there's that melodrama of his mom and his brother getting shot. Like there's I don't know, there's good balance in that backstory that I think that you're totally on Ram's side after that.
No, I agree, and I think we kind of go back to that reveal of information element of it, and I think that this is kind of a great part of the movie where to do that, because at this point, you've already, you really like Ram. After the dance sequence, I think you're really kind of bought into this, like, oh man, I don't want to see these two fight, or blah blah blah, or that kind of thing. And then like even before you get to the flashback, kind of leading up to where he gets bitten by the snake,
right?
It's the part where he kind of realizes that the man who came into tapped on his shoulder in that place wherever they were, the meeting house, was a painter, and like trying to track him down and all that.
Brother.
So kind of Beam's brother, and it's like, so you see kind of like the mad dog element of that.
His bad music turns on. He's turned back into the fire.
Right. So trying to figure this out and find this thing, and so you're like, oh no, like don't do this, like, so you're really rooting for him not to do it, but then
he does.
Right, but he does, but then you find out. Like, so it's a great time for them to kind of hit you with that recontextualization of who he is. But then that obviously leads to the actual prison break sequence because by that point, Bheem knows that Malli is in the house, and decides that he needs to do something, so he's going to do it, and that's where this kind of like big animal, like the big animal prison break sequence happens, and it's a really great kind of like nature versus modern world
Right.
moment, and I think that kind of goes back to like him being a man of the forest and all of that.
Yeah.
There's more to that, but I think that and it's something you don't necessarily have seen very often.
No, and it's wild and it's crazy, but
Yeah.
like I said, like there's still some grounded in reality because I would fully expect it as this scene like played out. Like essentially, you would expect like all these animals are like maybe they're not on his side because that's weird, like not
Yeah,
possible.
right.
But like they would
Right.
never attack him, right? They're only going to attack the bad people.
Right.
But that's not true. They're wild animals,
Yeah.
so Beam has to still dodge them, and
Yeah.
Beam has to still fight the animals,
Which is
too.
really cool. Yeah.
Which yeah, I'm like, all right, there's just enough reality in there, which is like keeps it more fresher, it keeps it cooler, keeps more action on the main, the protagonist of this set piece, and
Yeah.
it's just real smart, just to keep it realer and more, in that situation. But it doesn't work out for Beam because Rom
Right.
ends up beating him. I
Right.
guess you
Well,
would
has
say.
to
Yeah.
because they have Molly and,
Yeah.
and Ray Stevenson's going to shoot her otherwise.
Right.
So he does what he has to do.
Yeah. But then I think we get to the point because now at this point in the audience, like as an audience member, like we know Rom's story, we know Beam's story, we want them on the same side, but they're not.
Right.
We kind of get what Rom's doing now. We don't
Yeah.
know it all just yet, but like it's basically the torture scene
Yeah.
that I'm trying to get to with Beam's
Yeah.
held up, and then Rom has to like whip him till
Yeah.
he basically chooses to take a knee, confess, and whatever. And Rom's beating the heck out of him with that whip, and Beam won't take a knee. He's never going to. And then so Rom kind of like tugs at his chain and to basically knock him over,
Yeah.
to force him to take a knee. And it kind of works. Like everybody thinks he did,
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't. And
Yeah.
he's still kind of held up. And I thought I like how this scene plays out.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely one of the most effective scenes in the movie, and especially like as far as lighting the fire of revolution.
Yes,
You
this
know,
is
the
spark.
scene. This
Yeah.
is the spark. You're right, and because he won't take the knee, and it's also a very interesting scene because the governor's wife really kind of almost takes over being the villain in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's the one who throws the spiked whip when he won't take a knee, and like she's like really even more bloodthirsty than her husband is. Which I just looked at. It's really funny. You know who the wife is? Catherine Brave Stevenson's wife. She was Elsa from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Is that right?
That is right. I just looked it up. I was very curious who she was. But yeah, I did not catch that in the movie at all. But it just kind of blew my mind, so I had to say it. But as I said, she kind of takes over being the Nazi.
And she is the one that kind of kidnapped. Yeah, she's the one that kind of kidnapped Molly in the beginning.
Right,
to begin with,
she was, which was obviously again kind of that like heartbreaking moment. So to kind of see her come full circle in that and like be the one who's like throwing the whip, make him bleed.
Yeah.
I thought there'd be more blood, all of that. I think it really kind of solidified her as being an equal villain.
Then
to
she
her
brought out
husband.
this super whip that was like the whip that was filled with nails, and you're like, no way, you're gonna hit him with this,
right? And he does. But really, the most effective thing in this scene is the song.
Sure.
And I think it's it's a great moment for Beam to kind of become the symbol, if you will, of revolution. And it's interesting how music plays a role and always has played a role in things like that.
Yeah, I think this is where like Rom really turns to, because he learns the lesson that really the movie's trying to get to the whole time, is that the weapon, like Rom has devoted his whole life to becoming the weapon, and he wants to get the weapons, he wants to get the guns, and he wants to get the grenades, and he wants to arm his people, and like this is how they're going to drive the British out of India. But what he really learned in this scene from Beam is like Beam inspired people with just song. Like they didn't need weapons to attack. They just needed a reason. They just needed a symbol. And so Rom learns, like I said, Rom learns the greatest weapon is not an actual physical gun and stuff. And so I think that's really great. Until he changes Rom's entire mindset, and then from that moment on, they're not together, but they're on the same page.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of an effective way that the writers kind of lure you in with their relationship, is you're constantly wanting something. Like when they first become friends, you're like, I don't want to see them fight.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then it's like after they finally do fight, like, well, I want to see them, and especially once you know that Rom's on the same, side, just
Yeah.
on a different mission that he doesn't know. Like, you want them to just talk, just tell each other, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're constantly like rooting for them to get on the same footing, and it's, I think it's great how far they take it, to the point where, Rom helps Bheem and Malli escape, which is a great sequence, and then like actually like helps them escape so much so that he gets himself captured.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's also brilliant the way they frame it, because like he has effectively saved them.
Yeah.
But there's one shooter behind like Bheem.
Right.
And so like as Ram is trying to take out this last shooter, in Bheem's perspective, it looks like he's going after Malli.
Yeah.
So which is because then Bheem is the one who really like hurts Ram enough where they can actually take it over, which is just brilliant. It keeps like you feel they're so close to getting back together, and then they pull the rug out from under you, like, nope, not yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of like going through the whole search sequence and all of that, after Bheem escapes, trying to find him, and then Ram being in jail, and that's when you kind of see him chained up, and he's got the long hair because he's been chained up for months. They're only like feeding him once a week, but he's still like doing like pull-ups. And I'm like, all right, Rambo.
Well, they set up like we feeding him like once a week. He's going to be shriveled up, nothing. By the time we execute him, he's going to be begging for death. And then when they turn around and look at him, he's doing exercise, and they're like, what?
Yeah, like I love that whole scene. Like it's a bit funny, like almost like comical to a sense, because like the music behind it is really kind of like overly kind of like dramatic and kind of funny, and he's like glistening muscles, like pulling himself up, and then
but they're like, what could you possibly be working out for?
Long locks, great beard. Just like, damn, dude.
Yep. Yeah. Well, again, embrace the absurdity.
Yeah.
Right? Embrace the absurdity. It's a great reveal, so do it. You know what I mean? Like, is a hair corny? Sure, but like, it fits the tone of what we've been doing this whole time.
Yeah. Well,
be true to who we are.
Right. And again, it kind of at that point, I mean, there's really a pretty solid trajectory through this whole movie. Like, it doesn't really stop. There's not really a lull.
Right.
So you go from that into Bheem and all of his people kind of like on the run, and then they run into Sita, and she helps them, and then find through dialogue figures out, oh, like my fiance is Ram, and oh man, and then like again, like you said, reveals the story to them, and then Bheem. So this is an interesting part of the movie for me, because I feel like at this point I don't know how to feel about it, I guess, because so in the beginning of the movie they set up Bheem to be kind of like this like really unstoppable force.
They're almost they're like two superheroes.
Right. And then at this point in the movie I do feel like it changes a little bit, which I find interesting, where like Bheem almost takes like a back seat to Ram. And it seems like, because for Bheem he looks at it like, oh, all I cared about was getting back Malli, and he cares about saving the whole country.
Right.
And so I don't there's part of me that doesn't know if they're like trying to kind of like degrade Bheem a little bit.
I think there's
because it's like, oh, you're just being selfish. It's like, well, no, he's trying to save this little girl who was kidnapped. Like, that's still a pretty admirable thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's one scene missing, because like we know already that Ram told somebody separately how much he has learned and been inspired by Bheem.
Right.
We can see how Bheem is inspired by Ram, but we don't get the scene where they talk to each other and be like, no, bro, you've inspired. Like, it's not one or the other, it's both. We need to like have this big picture idea, but we still need to save the little guy. Like, we can't leave the little guy either. Like, we need both of us. Like, there's one scene missing where they say that to each other. I do agree.
Yeah. Just because, like I said, I don't know if, and this, it can be, I'm sure people can disagree with me, but I don't feel like Bheem truly ever encapsulates the person that they set up in the beginning outside of that first scene with the tiger.
Right.
I'm not saying he doesn't have great action sequences, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying he doesn't do great things, but once he comes to the city, he almost kind of becomes meek in ways that I don't know if
He
he ever
did- yeah.
truly recovers from.
You're right, because he does say like he acts meek on purpose.
Right,
He,
right. I know that's
but
part of his disguise.
right, no, I know, but he almost like I almost feel like there is maybe a bit where the writer forgets that was an act, and that they think that that's him. You know what I mean?
Right.
You do feel that, and he does even say like, Ram, I want you to be my teacher, and I do think like Ram is more of the he's more Rambo'd than Bheem.
Right. Well,
They're
yeah.
different.
Even the physical change, like I said, with the long hair and the beard, and then like in that last action sequence in the forest, he has like his whole costume changes. He becomes like a god almost, and it's like Bheem just is like, I'm here.
I'm still,
I'm
I'm a
still
superhero, but
here.
you're a god, and you're better than me.
And like, so I do feel like in that regard, I was a little kind of disappointed in how they never really brought Bheem to the same level as
it would have been great
Rom.
if they both got to that level.
Yeah.
It would have been even better.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yeah, and like I said, it almost feels like they let Bheem go just a hair. Like I said, he still does cool stuff.
Yeah.
But he's not doing it with the confidence that Rom is. And I think you
Definitely.
feel that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, like I said, I never truly comes back in the movie.
He never evolves. He doesn't evolve to God mode.
Yeah, no, and they this is a great action sequence. Again, as we said earlier, there's a lot of great moments. I think the bads get their good comeuppance.
Yeah.
I think having the wife kind of have her own death sequence, I thought was good.
Yeah.
Kind of the flaming bike and the whole building blows up and all that. I thought that stuff was really good. And then referencing the English bullet. And like the whole thing was like, have it put it next to his heart, right? Yeah, like put it next to his heart, or keep it close to his heart. Like I thought that whole sequence was really great, and I can agree that they both kind of like are about even footing in that point, but it still feels like Rom's kind of calling the shots.
Yeah.
But the scene's still satisfying.
Yeah.
I just again, and you kind of maybe like nitpick or whatever, but
Sure.
it just for a movie that I feel like in that first 30 minutes or whatever, you're really setting up these two guys to be two unstoppable forces. By the end, it feels like one of them's like a real unstoppable force, and one of them's like a click or two below.
He is.
Like, meh, that's okay.
Yeah. You're like, I wonder why you picked him over the other. Like, what was the deciding factor?
Sure.
But yeah, they don't both seem like they evolve equally. I will give you that, but I like Rom more anyway, so that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Oh, really?
I have more
so
fun
you're
with
team
Rom. I'm team Rom.
Oh man,
Yeah. So.
I don't know if I'm team Rom necessarily.
Again,
I like Bheem. I think.
I think Bheem's great, but I just think Rom.
It's the long hair and the beard, isn't it?
Well, I think
I get that.
That opening scene, that one verse 1,000 scene is just like I just love that scene.
It's a great action sequence. He probably does have the best action sequences, but again, like the prison break scene with the animals with
it's cool.
With Bheem is pretty great too.
But Rom hijacks that scene too.
That's fair, man. That's true. Justice for Bheem.
All right, Rob. So at the end of the day, this is the story of both of them. It's Rom and Reem's story. It is this like this team up superhero duo, and we said at the beginning we were questioning how this movie kind of holds up to this superhero fatigue. If it does, in your opinion. So, this is the part of the episode where you have, the part of the episode where you have to start to give away some of your feelings toward the movie before we get to our ultimate question on if you liked it. But, let's try to answer that question. Let me hear your answer to it. Like, do you think this movie tackles superhero fatigue effectively? And, if you think so, like, what were some of the things that you think made it do so?
Well, I do. Ultimately, yes. I do think it overcame the superhero fatigue because, one thing that, obviously, one of the chief complaints about something like Marvel is the interconnectivity of all the movies and feeling like you have to watch every single thing to understand what's happening, or otherwise you're going to miss something. And this is obviously a contained story. So I think in that regard, obviously, this is going to have an advantage just because of that. Now, I did look it up real fast. Did you know this was based on a true story?
No.
It is a fictionalized meeting of the real-life revolutionaries, Bheem and Rom.
Well, I know the next doc I want to check out.
Right, yeah, so you got to find out if that is an absolute doc, because that is something you should totally watch. But, yeah, so this is obviously has that going for it as well. It is a, based on true events, if you will. Obviously very fantasticized. that a word?
It is
Fantasized?
now. I think it is.
Why
not?
Fictionalized version of how these two men met, but like, so and I think the other element of it too, and I think this is again kind of goes back to the whole Bollywood thing, is the cultural elements of the movie. I think it's a movie that knows what it is. It's very comfortable being what it is, and allowing itself to be a very serious movie, but not take itself that
Yeah.
seriously in a way. Like I don't even know if that's necessarily the right way to say it, because
Well,
I don't know
and
if it's not
yeah.
taking. It's not that it's a joke, you know what I mean?
Right.
But it's
Well,
just it's embracing the kind of what we said earlier about that kind of like fantastical elements and not being afraid to put itself all out there
right.
and really swing for the fences.
And maybe that's harder to do than what it seems. Maybe that's why so many people fail because they don't know how to balance that line.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like this movie ever struggles to do that.
Yeah, and there's it's such a kinetic movie. Whether it's the dance sequences, which I mean, there are at least there's the dance off. There's the one at the end. There's
and then
multiple
there's Bheem
songs.
song in the middle
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So and the music. I mean, there's just so many elements of this movie that make it pop off the screen at you.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a veritable feast for the eyes and just the senses in general, the ears, the eyes. Like, it's crazy what they're able to kind of get out of every frame of this movie, which is something that I think you can say that Marvel doesn't do as well anymore, or whatever, you know what I mean, or as consistently.
Yeah.
Where they're able to kind of get every drop of narrative, every drop of action out of every sequence in the movie, and this is like I said, I think it's something that RRR really does well.
Yeah.
But what about you?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like this movie is just fun, and
Yeah.
and you can't maybe you can't always put a perfect thumbprint or reason on or thumbtack and reasons like this is these three things that check these three boxes and that's why it's successful. It's just fun. Like I said, we've stated the movie knows what it is. I think it's very inventive in
Yeah.
it's very inventive in its fight scenes. They'll balance that line of absurdity and like I said, we brought up culturally, but I think to me this is a movie that like obviously it's broken out of just being an Indian movie or just being a Bollywood movie because it's I don't know, it's taken something to the next level.
Yeah.
So like I said, for me it's just at the end of the day in the most simplest form, I'm like I have fun when I watch this movie every time. Like I don't get bored with it. Even upon rewatches and stuff. And it's long. You know what I mean?
It is long. It is long.
But there's enough like
It doesn't feel long.
it doesn't really because there's so much you're learning like there's new information every
Freight
time.
train, man.
Yeah,
It just goes.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, there doesn't have to be all these reasons of like what makes it successful. It's a combination of a lot of little things.
Yeah.
But it is successful, at least in my opinion. It always is, and that's what I want to know now from you. I love this movie. That's why I recommended it. I like some of these action scenes are burned into my brain. I think they're great. But what about you, Rob? Did you end up liking this movie as much as I hoped you would, and would you recommend it to people like I just recommended it to you?
I'm usually pretty good about keeping my feelings under wraps. I don't know if I was with this one because, yes, I loved RRR. This movie was amazing. From beginning to end, I could not turn away. Like, it is entrancing.
Yeah.
And like I said, every action sequence just jumps off the screen, whether it's the color palette of the movie, the kinetic nature of how it's filmed, kind of messing with some of the frame rates and stuff like that. I mean, it just goes and it draws you in. And, it's funny. It's something that kind of just connective tissue that, how our show works. I think a little bit of last week when we watched The Good, the Bad, the Weird.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think some of those action sequences in that movie kind of did the same thing, and it kind of goes with that cultural experience of how these movies are made. And I think RRR takes the subject matter, like I said earlier, that it's very serious. I mean, in the Indian Revolution, driving the British out of India, like that's a big deal. And having these two men meet, is obviously a great piece of their history. And to take it and not be afraid to really, kind of, like I said, make it this kind of larger than life tale, I think really worked for it. I don't know how true some of
Right.
these elements are. How that kind of goes. Where you kind of like build these tall
The tale is
tales.
always bigger than the actual events.
Right, but like I think for me as a moviegoer, if I never knew that this was the case, you know
Right.
what I mean? And
I hadn't until now.
right, well there you go. And somebody else, I keep like picking all these filmmakers. I've mentioned Guillermo del Toro. I just mentioned Good, the Bad, and the Weird and all that. Another movie or another filmmaker that kind of like I see in this movie a lot is Baz Luhrmann, like
The Bosinator?
like Moulin Rouge,
Sure.
Australia,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. Like I think I see a little bit of that in there as well, and it's great to see a movie that's able to, and I don't know, how much of these movies were, could have yes
Been
or no been
inspired by.
inspired in for this movie, but to kind of see these connective tissues in the filmmaking world, I think is great because it's just you can kind of build off of those things, but you make it your own. And I think that's really what this movie does is it takes something, whether you see it, other movies in it or whatever, whether it's Marvel or whether it's like I said, The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, Baz Luhrmann, whatever, Guillermo, and you make a movie that's so unique and
Mhm.
so original, and it grabs the viewer by the throat, and it's just like you can't look away. It's few movies do it, I think, as well as RRR does. All right, everyone, that has wrapped it up for RRR, which I really loved. Might be my
Yes.
favorite movie of the year. We will see.
So far.
We will see.
It's up there so far, you think?
Absolutely. And since I loved this movie so much, that makes me have to ask, Ray, is there anything else that you've been watching lately that I should also be watching?
Well, there's some things that I've talked about before that shows that have wrapped up. I finished season 4, I think, of Shrinking. I'm a huge Shrinking
Michael J.
fan.
Fox was on this season, wasn't he?
He was in a couple episodes.
Okay, yeah, probably was a
Yeah, it wasn't a huge part, but he was, who's in there that, Harrison Ford's character deals with Parkinson's and stuff, and so it's a big thing throughout the seasons of the show, and it's really just it's still great. I think like they're into that season 4 where like the actors know the characters, so sometimes they're like maybe they overdo them because they're just so into like how these characters act and bounce off each other. So it feels like sometimes it gets a little loose, but when they get back on track,
Yeah.
and they're like really doing their thing and telling the story that they want to tell, it's a really really good show.
Okay.
I really recommend it. And like I always kind of say this, I think when I wrap it up, I think I've talked about multiple seasons of Shrinking on this section of our show. But it's like Harrison Ford looks like he cares, and
Right.
sometimes you see Harrison Ford in movies and he doesn't care. He's just
Right.
checking a box, but
Yeah.
he looks like he cares.
That's
in the show,
Harrison
which is-
Ford on a
yeah.
good day.
Yeah, so that's cool. I finished One Piece season 2.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Which is fun. Which is a lot of fun. Never watched any of the anime or anything like that, so all I
Right.
know about One Piece is from this show, and it's definitely it's fun. Like they heighten what the show does well. I have some really good fight scenes, and it's super cartoony. And I kind of like this day and age that we're in, where like shows are embracing the cartooniness of themselves.
Definitely.
And they're not like trying to like make everything ultra like hyper realistic anymore.
Sure.
And, so it's able to keep the fun.
Like RRR.
Yes, exactly. Perfect fit. So that's great. And then the movie I watched was Crime 101 with Chris
I have
Hemsworth
seen that
and
on
Mark Ruffalo.
Prime, right?
Yeah.
Prime. Yeah.
Yeah. So, or you could have saw it in theaters.
No, I didn't.
But
do that.
yeah,
I did not.
but it was pretty. It was fine. It was pretty good. Like it's long. It's like over like pushing
Long.
2.5 hours, which is a lot of movie for like a crimey type movie. It's also got Barry Keohan.
Barry Keoghan.
Yeah,
Something like
yeah.
that. Keoghan.
Yeah, he's in it. He plays like, and it's weird. Like they're all American, so I'm like, oh, weird. Everybody's doing American accents here.
Accent.
So, but
These are my American voice.
yeah, but it's I think it's like I don't think it's perfect by any stretch. Like they have this like love interest that comes in, and like she seems like she's gonna be the character that really helps Chris Hemsworth, and then she disappears for like an hour and 45 minutes. You're like, wait, I forgot she existed, and
Right.
it's just kind of like there's just maybe tried to do too much in some aspects, but I'm not saying go out of your way, but like I wouldn't say avoid it either.
Sure.
So I'm not going to give any spoilers or anything, but it was fine. Didn't want to turn it off at any aspect, but not going to say I walked away really loving it.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
What about you? What have you been checking out?
Oh boy, I've got a few things. So the first thing, and this will also tie into our season, is I finally got around to watching The Ballerina, the
Ooh,
spin-off from John
yes.
Wick with Ana de Armas. And it was good. Like it was good. Is it as good as the core John Wick movies? No, but I think it could be. It's kind of in that situation where like maybe if they do more of these and spend
Yeah.
more time with the character, I think it could occupy the same space. Maybe not as big of a cultural phenomenon as John Wick, but
Mm-hmm.
still occupy the same space. And John Wick is in it, which is interesting because it kind of like takes place concurrently with some of the other John Wick movies. So I think that kind of is an interesting element of it as well. Um, but I don't know the future of them.
Yeah, I'm not. I
Uh,
don't either.
I don't, but and I hope they do make more because, like I said, I think that they could be good. And Anna de Armas, I think, is perfect for it. Then another movie that's kind of, I guess it's a spinoff, but I don't know. Like I think they're literally trying to do a new trilogy of this. Is I watched 28 Years Later's The Bone Temple,
Oh, right.
which is like I guess they filmed it at the same time as 28 Years Later, which I was actually a huge fan of. I thought that for a movie coming back to a
Yeah,
sequel
I heard it
after
was
so time,
great.
it's
I didn't see
great,
it, but
so good. And then The Bone Temple, just as good. Like and Nia DaCosta directed it, who did the remake of Candy, or I should say the sequel to Candyman. It was not a remake. So it was kind of it's a really smart way to do this. So they had taken like such an interesting set piece and character from 28 Years Later that I'm sure people watch like I would really love to know more about this guy,
hmm
and then they plop him in his own movie, and I think that really works. And there's actually another character from 28 Years Later that is intertwined with him in this story as well. So and I ultimately think will lead to the third movie.
I feel
Like
like this movie came out so quick that people lost track of like what it was, and like
yeah,
I don't think
I
they
get that. I
advertised it
get that.
well.
Yeah, no, I totally get that because it's like, is this like
Yeah.
is it a short or something? You
Because
know what I mean?
I've
They
heard
film
it
at the
was
same time.
good before, but it was like people are like, "There's no way a sequel." The movie just came out like a couple months ago.
Yeah, it is a sequel, but in a different kind of
Yeah.
way.
Well,
It
them
just take
shooting it concurrently makes the
right.
timeline work.
Absolutely, but it's highly, highly worth your time. I don't know if did you ever watch 28 Years Later?
No.
You need to because I know you. Funny story, side quest. Ray and I saw 28 Days Later in the theater together originally when it came out, and he hated it.
Yes.
I loved it. He hated it, and
I don't
I'd love to
typically like
revisit it with
zombie
you. I
movies.
know, but I would love to revisit it with you now because I feel like you're in a different headspace, film wise, than you were
Maybe.
20 years ago.
Maybe. Just maybe.
Just maybe, but either way, I think you'd really dig 28 Years Later,
Yeah.
and I think you'd really dig The Bone Temple. Um, another fun kind of comedy, throwaway comedy maybe, but it's a fun movie is the Pizza Movie.
The
Or just Pizza
pizza
Movie. You might know,
movie.
maybe know the. It's got Gaten from Stranger Things, and you will know this.
You mean Dustin?
Sure, I'm gonna give him the courtesy of treating him like a real person, Gaten. But and you'll know this. It stars the nerdy guy who voices the character. Or sorry, the guy who voices the nerdy kid on Camp Cretaceous on Netflix.
The kid
I
from the
cannot remember his name.
Goldbergs.
Oh, was he in the Goldbergs? I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie, I never saw the Goldbergs.
Yeah, and
so,
he's in
okay.
Solar Opposites. He plays
Oh, okay.
Yumulak. Let's see what's his name.
But
He's got a name.
he's got. Well,
Want?
I'll keep talking while you look it
You
up.
can't tell. You can't call Dustin, but you're gonna call this kid the nerdy kid from Camp Cretaceous.
Well, I don't know his real name, so I do know Gaten's real name. But
Sean Giambroni.
you just called him a jabroni?
Yeah,
Oh my god!
that's what
Now
it
you're
looks
giving me
like.
crap? No. So, but no, it's a really great kind of stoner throwaway comedy. It's about these two kids in college who end up taking this drug that they find in their dorm room, that I guess was left there, hidden there by a previous chem major, like genius chem major who like went to the college. And the only thing that can negate the effects of this drug, which are pretty intense and come in like these various stages,
Yeah.
is pizza. So they order pizza
Perfect
and they have
cure.
to get down to the lobby to get it. But while they're doing it, like I said,
They're
this
tripping
different,
out.
yeah, and there's the different stages of the drug that that kind of kick in over the course of it that makes it difficult just to
Sure.
get down the stairs to get this pizza. And then there's some like like villainous characters that kind of come into it that like are resident advisor characters and stuff. They're really funny. And Lulu Wilson is in it. Luke Wilson's daughter, who was in
Okay.
that movie Becky. I think that's what it's called, Becky. It was a really good movie, but she's also in it, which is a lot of fun. But it's a low stakes, super fun movie. It's one that you might watch the trailer and be like, I don't know, like seems like it's kind of out there, and it is, but it's a lot of fun. And I appreciate getting to see Gayton outside of Stranger Things,
Yeah.
because I feel like he's like the one I've seen outside the least of
Yeah,
all the kids.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So, but so I'm glad that that he's going to be able to kind of continue on post
Stranger Things.
post Stranger Things, exactly. And then I got 2 shows real quick. I finished Twisted Metal season 2,
Oh, right.
which you gotta watch.
I keep needing to, but
It's
can't get fitted in the schedule.
it is probably one of the biggest surprises for me over the last few years as far as television goes, because it was I remember us talk like when that first footage came out of of John Doe and Sweet Tooth fighting. We're like, God, this looks horrible.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a parody. And then the first season came out, and we were like, "Oh, this is actually
It wasn't
not
bad.
bad."
Yeah.
And season 2 only gets better. Like they
I've
still
heard
kind of
this.
slow walk to the tournament, which I think is somewhat smart because it really allows them to build the characters, even like the other competitors. I think they handled the tournament in a really smart way to make it more than just like a Mortal Kombat situation. It's like,
Right.
oh, I'm just gonna fight this guy and then I'm gonna be done, or whatever. And I think they've done a really good job of setting up a season 3.
Sweet.
So
Sweet
I
Tooth.
exactly. I highly recommend it. Sweet Tooth, great. Everybody's great. And you know what? I oh my gosh, Anthony Mackie. Everybody, Falcon. With
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie these days. I'm going to go on a limb and
Captain
say this is
America.
my favorite. And now he's Captain America, exactly. And now I have to say this might actually be my favorite Anthony Mackie performance is in Twisted Metal.
Okay.
He is so good in this season and plays off of Stephanie Beats.
Yes.
Beats, is that her? Yeah, Stephanie Beats. So well that it just I love his character.
Yeah.
I love his turn as John Doe, and I think he is just fantastic. The last show that I watched finished season 1 of The Beauty, which is a
Okay,
new,
yeah.
like Ryan Murphy, like kind of it feels kind of like an American Horror Story, but not at the same time. I love the concept of this show. It is very much in like a death becomes her kind of situation where it's like this guy has figured out a chemical that will like completely transform your body into being
Yeah.
youthful again, and like the perfect version of yourself. And there's some really horrible side effects that come along with it, because like the like a different version of the drug gets out, and it's like then the FBI comes in, and
Yeah.
like, so like
This is based off a graphic novel.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually do. I was not aware of that. I might actually check that out because that could be interesting. Like the cast is great. Like they bring all kinds of. Vincent D'Onofrio is in it. Ashton Kutcher is in it. Rebecca Hall is in it. Evan Peters is in it. Like there's a lot of really great people. Anthony Ramos is in it, who is just fantastic as always, and there's a lot of interesting twists and turns of the story. My biggest issue with this show is the pacing. It's
Yeah.
weird as hell. Like there's some episodes that are like 29 minutes, and then there are some that are like 45 minutes, and it's like, and they end in really weird spots.
Yeah.
Like there was one episode where it was like, Evan Peters is one of the FBI agents. He's talking to another FBI agent, and they reference like somebody that he's getting ready to like interrogate, and like it's going to go to the commercial break. Like, okay, when we come back, he's going to be interrogating this
Interrogate
person.
him.
It comes back from commercial breaks, and it's the credits. And like, what the hell just happened? So like, there's a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But stylistically, it's an interesting show. Like, there's a lot. The way that it's shot is
Body
interesting.
horror?
Yes, there's
Yeah.
definitely body horror elements to it and stuff like that. So it's I'm going to say it's worth your time to check out, but I am on myself a little bit on the fence about a second season.
Yeah.
But if you like Ryan Murphy's stuff, I think you would like The Beauty.
All right. Well, let's wrap up this conversation on RRR. I'm really pleased with myself. I presented you a movie that you really enjoyed, which is great.
Yeah, might end up being my favorite movie of this year. I mean, it's got
So
it's
this
a-
is the
it's a
bar.
That's
This
the
is
bar,
you have
man.
to
I was
pass.
gonna say.
Shoot. Oh shoot. Okay. All right. I'm gonna try, but it will be tough. But yeah, we're done. But the audience isn't, because
Nope.
if they don't, because I'm gonna RRR on them. I'm gonna rise, roar, and revolt. If they don't like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast and review the podcast. If you leave us a 5-star review, we're gonna read it live on air someday. You guys can also email us at carrayrob@gmail.com or reach out to us on Blue Sky at carrayrob.
That's right. You can also now find us on Instagram and Facebook. Go on and see what great things we are doing over there. If there is a comment section on whatever platform you're on, by all means, let us know what you thought of RRR. Did you love it as much as I did?
You
I
have
find that
to.
hard to believe because I just loved it so damn much.
Oh, just be in the ballpark of where Rob
There
is.
you
That would be
go.
good.
That's fair. But we will be back next week with this month's episode of Hello Movies, My Old Friend, where Ray and I are going to be revisiting the Clint Eastwood directed classic, A Perfect World.
I feel like we've been talking about this for a year.
I
We're
know.
finally going to do it.
We're finally going to do it. But then we will be back in 2 weeks, and it will be back to me because it's a brand new month, and that means it's a brand new episode of Say Hello to My Little Film. And I have got something for Ray that I am so excited to show you.
I don't like the way you're saying
Oh,
that.
you shouldn't. You shouldn't at all.
You're mad. You're mad that I've liked the last couple, so you're out. You're seeking blood.
I'm out for blood now. No, but it's this is one that I've really wanted to show you. It's kind of a hard movie to find, but I got it, and we can do it, so it's going to be great. But then we will be back with a copy of a copy, and we are going to be doing something very special, something we've never done before for a copy of a copy. We are going to be having a guest in studio. Because
our normal guest.
To be fair, it is our normal guest. Mr. Kitty Kaiju will be back in studio because we are going to be watching one of his absolute favorite movies, and that is Pacific Rim.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also going to be watching the direct-to-video ripoff Atlantic Rim.
Pacific Rim 2. Oh,
no, he loves that one too. Maybe
yeah.
even more than the first one. But Atlantic Rim,
the complete other side of the ocean.
Exactly, and it is there was a whole string of movies at one time where it was like Sci-Fi was releasing these, direct-to-video rip-offs of big movies that were coming out, and this is one of those. But we're very excited to check this out. I've never seen it. Mr. Kitty Kaiju's never seen it, and he wants to watch it, so we're going to make it happen, and we're going to bring it straight to you. Exactly, we're going to bring it straight to you. But you are not going to want to miss it. But until then, this is Car Ray Rob.
Where I'm Ray.
And I'm Rob. And remember, be defined by the films you love, not the ones you hate.
Hey there, it'll be just a little while till Ray and Rob spit their spittle. Come on, check out of the hospital. So grab some of your best peanut brittle. This will be a darn good transmittal. And say hello to my little film.
All right, everyone, I am back real quick with a stinger for my next episode of Say Hello to My Little Film, and I have to say I'm very excited about this episode because I'm going to be showing Ray something I've wanted to show him for a while. It's a little hard to find these days, but it is currently streaming, so I am jumping on the opportunity, and that is the 1971 historical psychological horror film The Devils by Ken Russell. This movie is a trip. It was originally rated X in the UK and the United States. It was banned in several countries. It is a movie that I've wanted to show Ray because I am in this rut of wanting to kind of push him, and this is a movie that is definitely gonna do it. It stars with Vanessa Redgrave and Oliver Reed. It is so damn good, but it is definitely gonna be something that's gonna push his tastes, I will say. But you are not going to miss it, and we will see you then.